All right, tonight we want to talk about what?
Shadow people?
Shadow people. What are shadow people?
I mean, I can tell you from my experience, I've been seeing shadow people for 32 years.
32 years. Mm-hmm. That's a long time.
It is a long time.
That's my whole life.
Oh, yeah.
So what are these shadow people?
I mean, my opinion is I've never been hurt by them. I've never been attacked by them. That's not what they've ever done to me. I've heard a lot of people talk about them, but for me, they're watchers. You know, they stay in the room and they watch me. And when I feel their presence strong enough to wake up, at that point, I would say no, and they would just fade away and leave.
Okay, you're starting to sound like you're describing my neighbors.
You got some voyeurs.
Every time I step outside, I look at the neighbors and he's watching me through his window. Okay, mister. So what are these shadow people, what do they look like?
They're different. They have different looks about them. I've seen several different types, but the main shadow people that I see, they're dark figures. They kind of hang around, usually in the corners of the room. They look like bats a little bit as far as their body types tend to hang from one corner to the other, and they're very long. They give the appearance that they're 10 feet tall.
So they're not really that tall, they just look tall?
Well, the house, usually a house isn't 10 feet, but they give the appearance that they're that in your mind, you're seeing them a lot bigger than what's possible for the room. So, but then there are some that are small as well. It just depends on...
So there's not just like one type. They're an actual people. Different shapes, sizes, height.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, they're
some
different.
Some are big, some are little.
And not all of them.
Like, is there age to them? Like, is there some young and old? Or?
I've never seen, like, the actual face of one. Because what you see, your room can be completely dark. And then the shadow person is, like, even darker. It's like this dark, wet black color in the room of darkness. So they're distinguishable, but not like a physical features of the face or the body. And it just depends. Like, I've seen several different types of shadow people. Not all of them are...
So these shadow people, what do they want? Have they ever made it clear?
They've never made it clear, but I've also never had the courage to ask them either. Because I was raised in a more of a Christian environment, we've always been taught you don't talk to spirits because then they'll try to enter you. But
okay, so let me get this straight. You wake up in the middle of the night, you see these black shadowy figures lurking in your bedroom watching you, and you don't say nothing?
This is a woman's worst nightmare. So no, women don't, or as a woman, I wouldn't, just reach out and try to get a conversation with some dark lurking figure. There's a feeling in the room of fear.
Oh, so these things carry a feeling.
They bring a feeling, and you can like
a sense.
Yes.
With them. Like a smell, or just...
It's not I wouldn't call it a smell. I would say...
A sense
there's
of...
a sense
vibe
of fear.
In the room?
It's inside of you. In their presence, there's a feeling of absolute terror.
You don't think it's just associated with, there's this dark, scary-looking figure in my bedroom?
Well, the reason I used to think it was that, but I started really just feeling it. Getting a feel for what it is and thinking about it. And at night, I would notice between the hours of 11 and 4, there would be this feeling of fear that would come across the whole house. Like, all of a sudden, I would be doing dishes and I would just feel afraid for no reason. Just like, oh my God, like something something bad in a horror movie was about to happen, and it just made you want to go to bed and hide under the covers.
I think there was something bad happening. You were doing dishes at 11 o'clock at night. That's terrible.
Yes.
So these things bring a feeling of fear. It's always at night. Has it ever happened during the day?
I've been at home alone during the day and had that same feeling of fear come over me.
Okay, so you don't always see them. Sometimes their presence.
Yes.
Sometimes the only thing you see is the feeling,
Right.
is the presence.
Yeah. Right. And that's when I know they're there.
So how many times have you actually seen these things
I would say between 20 and 30 times.
in the past 32 years?
Yeah.
Has anybody else seen them?
Yes, I have been in relationships, and they have woken up with me because, I would wake up and see them and, say no, and that would wake them up. But in one particular instance, my husband woke up at the same time that I said no, and he was going to yell at me for waking him up, and then he looked up and he saw the shadow person there, and it scared the crap out of him, and he jumped out of the bed and screamed, and of course the shadow person faded away. But
So they just fade away. They just disappear into the darkness.
yeah, they fade out into the darkness.
They don't walk away. They just dissipate.
They dissipate.
And they've never made a sound.
No, I've never heard a sound from them.
Just a feeling.
Now, I have had the cabinets close and open when there was the feeling of fear in the house. But I didn't see them doing it. I didn't see them while it was happening. So that seems to happen before their presence.
Now, I've also had an experience, I think, relative to what you're speaking on. I woke up in the middle of the night while in the bed. I don't know what time it was, but I woke up and I saw this shadow person. He looked, I don't know, he was almost to the ceiling. Like you stated, it was very tall. He was in some kind of uniform, like a robe or something majestic. And in his left hand, he had a staff. And that staff was in the shape or form of a crescent moon at the top of it. So it was just a rod, and at the top of the rod was affixed the crescent moon. And
Was it an upside down crescent moon?
yes, like a U. Mm-hmm. So, but more like the moon, like how the moon is when it's a crescent, but turned like a banana,
Mm-hmm.
So it was curved up, and he was a majestic looking being, and it was almost like he was authoritative figure, and it's
Like a priest?
yeah. So I mean, I'm not for sure. I don't know anything about it. I just saw that the room was pitch black, and this thing was so black, so dark that he stood outside. You could see him in the darkness.
Yeah.
Plain as day.
Yes.
And he spoke no words. He just emanated the feeling of fear. And when he saw that I saw him, or whenever I realized what was going on, that something was in the room, he also faded out.
Yeah.
And I actually did some research online, and there were some comics that were made. I looked and looked and looked, and I finally came across some stuff. It was about something with a comic. It was Moon Knight. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of the comic.
Night,
Moon
like Knight.
Yes, Moon Knight, I believe. And it's about an American CIA agent, I believe. He goes over there on a mission and ends up dying. And, the spirit of the Moon Knight enters him. And, man, on the front of that, I just kept typing in stuff on Google and looking through images, and that came up, and that was the closest thing I've ever seen to what I saw standing in that room that night. It's pretty incredible. And we spoke earlier on this, and you said that you had talked to some of your colleagues about it, and they had said what?
They said that the staff that you're talking about is Lucifer's staff.
Lucifer. Who is Lucifer?
Satan.
Satan. So who is Satan? I know in the Christian terminology, he's the manslayer. He's the one that caused in their Bible and their word the fall of mankind.
Yeah.
So who is it to these people, or who are these people?
The shadow people?
No, the people you got this information from.
Oh, they Wiccan. They're Wiccan.
Okay, so according to the Wiccan, who is Lucifer to them?
Lucifer is nobody.
Is he like a good guy?
No,
bad
for the
guy,
Wiccans, Wiccans don't believe in Satan.
Okay.
So this person, though, studies astrology, and she was saying that that was Lucifer's staff, and so for.
Is he like some kind of god, or?
There's just different beliefs on who he is, but some people believe that he was actually the liberator of mankind, because he's the one that gave Adam and Eve the ability to learn and comprehend like a god, instead of being stuck as ignorant followers of God. So he gave them the ability and the freedom to make choices, and give them the knowledge to choose the path, their own path, instead of being stuck in a box that God created for them.
So I see what you're saying there. You're saying, so when we were created, they believe, or you believe, what you're saying is that we were created as slaves. And we were just programmed to do this and do that, and not ever be aware of anything else.
Right.
And he was the one that came and brought awareness to us.
Right. It's like, I don't know. It's a lot like, as a parent, you want your child to only know certain things because you feel like that's going to give them safety. But once they go out in the world, they're going to be ignorant, and it's going to cause them a lot more harm. So, the thought is, teach your children, what's right and what's wrong, but, teach them everything so that they're not ignorant, because ignorance actually causes more calamity and more danger for them.
So he was like the father of awareness.
Yes.
He was he was the first creator of awareness.
Yeah.
He brought awareness to mankind.
Yes.
But what about the side effect of that? Now we face death. How do you feel about that? Do you believe that he caused that, or?
Well,
or that was put on us?
That was the punishment that God created for people, because they chose to be enlightened, because they chose to live outside of his rules. So that was their punishment for not doing things his way.
That's interesting, because I remember a story in Genesis that talks about, after the fall of man, that the punishment was, like you said, to take their life, but to kick them out of the garden and keep them from the tree of good and evil.
Of life.
Of life, yeah. And because he said that now they've become like us. Mm-hmm. So, he said us.
Yes.
So he was not alone wherever he was at, or whoever he was.
Right.
And so knowing good from evil, and that they could take from that tree and live forever. So he took the tree and drove them out. And something about a cherubim with ever-turning blades of fire, swords.
There were, I think, 4 angels or 2 that guarded the entrance.
At the gate, yeah.
Yeah, the gates of Eden.
So, do you think Eden was like a natural place on this planet?
Honestly, I mean, I'm in the thought right now. I believe in the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki represents. There were more than one Anunnaki that represent the God of the Bible. So sometimes when you're reading through the Bible, you get this one version of God that's like very rule oriented, and everybody has to follow these rules, or you're going to die, and I'm going to destroy you and your children and your children's children. And then you have this other God that's loving and kind, and he wants to bestow favors and blessings upon the people. So it almost looks like there's a bipolar God from the Bible. and one
Yes,
that's
mood swings.
yes,
Definitely.
yes.
Let
So
me kill everybody, and then here, let me put a rainbow in the sky, and
it's
I'll
like,
never do it again.
yes, I'm going to kill all of mankind, but
Except in the end, I'm going to burn you all up
yes,
with fire.
yeah. Yeah, so the idea is that the Anunnaki were
Anunnaki. What is Anunnaki?
the Anunnaki. Zachariah Sitchin went through the Sumerian text and deciphered it and found that there was an alien race that came through. They call them what are they called? Anyway, this
The Anunnaki.
the Anunnaki, but they there's another term for them that's something astronauts.
Oh, ancient astronauts.
Ancient astronauts.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
another phrase for them. But anyway, they came to Earth.
You're going along with the Sumerian tablets.
Yes.
So Zachariah Sitchin was the guy. He was a fellow that was able to decipher the
Yes.
Sumerian tablets.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so he found the ancient writings of what we know as the first people,
Yes.
and decoded or deciphered what they had written for the
Yeah.
generations to come.
There
Us.
yes, there are many
The
stories.
things that aren't taught or told.
Yes, there are many stories that they wrote, and they have to do with these people that they called Anunnaki. From heaven to earth came is how it's deciphered.
From those from heaven.
From heaven to earth came.
Yeah.
So that basically the Anunnaki came when the earth was just brand new, and it was still before it was a solid creation, and they came in and they started mining the gold while it was still soft.
This is very interesting. Let me stop you here.
Okay.
We're going to save that for another video.
Okay.
Let's not get sidetracked.
Okay.
That is so interesting, and I know that everybody's going to love it, so we're going to make our own video on that only.
Okay. That sounds good.
So, back to the shadow people.
Okay.
So, are you the only one that's ever seen it besides you and I? I mean, have you ever talked to anybody? I'm sure you shared your stories with others.
One of the things that I've talked to quite a few people, and a lot of the people that have seen shadow people, they also have different things in common. Like most of them do sleepwalking when they were children. At one point in their life, they've done sleepwalking, and it usually starts with them around puberty time too. So, but yeah, I've talked to a few people, and I've done research on YouTube and on the internet, and they have people that'll get on there and talk about this black shadow guy that wears a hat and has red eyes, and I've never seen that. I've just seen these shadows. I've seen other things too. I've seen like one ghost in my life, and I've seen orbs, and I've seen these very tall, I would almost call them angelic, maybe not the good angels with the wings, like they're dark
Like
messengers.
Nephilim.
Yeah, like messengers for sure. It's like when I see them, they're there to give me a message, and they don't speak either. They just stare at me, but they give me these little messages about themselves, and so I've seen different kinds, but and then one time I was with my husband, and he was asleep on his bed, and I saw this little creature sitting on his chest because he struggles with anxiety. And anyway, I saw this creature that looked like had the body of a tick with the skin of an avocado, and it was sitting on his chest. So I've seen different things.
So, what happened in that situation? Let's talk more about that.
Okay, so
the avocado demon devil there.
Yeah.
So you were asleep and
I was
in the bed with your husband.
Yeah.
And you woke up.
Well, he has panic attacks, and so what I would do.
Panic attacks during the night.
Yeah, while he's asleep, he has a lot of anxiety, and anyway, what I normally do is I'll rub his back until he goes to sleep, and one night I fell asleep while I was rubbing his back, and I went to roll over, and when I did, I woke up and saw this thing sitting on him, and it had a really big bottom and a small head. It looked like a dog tick.
I can understand why he has panic attacks.
Yes,
now.
and it turned and it looked at me, and I said no. And of course, that triggered my husband to wake up and have a panic attack at the same time.
So, did this thing see you?
Yes, it saw me and it looked at me.
What was the look in its eyes when it realized that you were looking at it?
It reminded me kind of like of a cat's look when they see you and they don't want you to see them. They think that they're invisikitty or invisible, and you see them and they're like, oh, their plans were foiled. That's what that look was.
So he was there to do something bad.
He was there, I think, to paralyze my husband with
like sleep
paralysis. Because he just was so heavy and he was just on his chest.
That's interesting. The Indians, they believe such things, that spirits come and sit on people's chest and cause the sleep
paralysis.
Yes. It's interesting that you actually saw the form of what was spoken.
Yeah.
From tradition with that.
Yes, it's definitely not a gift I don't think I've ever asked for, but I am not sad that I have it. I like having this gift. I like being able to see these things.
So, you have kids?
Yes, I have 2 children.
Now, have they seen the shadow people?
They've not seen the shadow people. They have seen different spirits and ghosts and things like that. My nephew even has seen shadows, not necessarily shadow people, but he's seen shadows on the ground in the night while he is sleeping and woke up.
That's scary.
And one summer he stayed with me and the kids, and he was in the living room. That was where he slept. And he would wake up. Oh, he'd be gaming, and he would hear the kitchen counters opening and closing while he would be gaming. And he'd say, well, that's when I decided it was time for me to go to sleep, because he was scared. So he would turn off the game and go to sleep. But there was a lot of activity that summer at the house we lived in.
Was it an older house?
I assume so. It seemed like it was older. It wasn't like 100 years old or anything, though. Maybe 40, 50 years old. So, not very old. But there was a lot of ghost activity there. A lot of spirits.
So, we're coming to the end of this, so I want to wrap it up in a minute. But I had another question. What do you think that these things are, these shadow people? Where do you think they come from? What are they? Who are they? What are they doing? Why are they here? And what do they want?
My opinion is...
And what are they?
I believe that they are aliens. I know that...
Aliens, I mean, you jump over a border fence. I mean, you're considered an alien. Describe alien.
An alien to me is an extraterrestrial or something from a different planet or a different dimension than what we are. And I really believe it's all dimensional. I believe that we live and operate in different dimensions. But I believe that the shadow people are probably grays that are monitoring the humans.
Grays. What is grays?
Gray aliens. The gray aliens. The little gray ones. They're not always little, but that's how we have always seen them depicted, as little gray aliens with big heads and big bottoms. But
so you believe that these shadow entities that appear in the night and just watch are cloaked grays that are there visiting?
I think that it's part of abduction, and I think it's basically kind of like what you see after you've been returned to your dimension, your state.
Oh, so you think that you were abducted those nights?
I think so.
So what about your previous husband there? I mean, was he...
I think that they just...
Was he taking that night too?
I think that... No. I think that they are.
What if they did some probing?
I think that they are just seeing the return of your consciousness. Like I think that he just witnessed the return of my consciousness, and then they were, they deliver you back, and then they depart.
They don't take your physical body.
I don't think they take the physical body. Honestly, I think that it's your consciousness that they're taking.
What do they do with it?
I think that they're taking information. I don't really know. I don't know if they're taking information or if they're giving you gifts. I think a lot of people that see the shadow people have other spiritual gifts that other people may or may not have. A lot of people are Rh negative that has the ability to see the shadow people too. So there's a lot of...
And what blood are you?
I'm a negative. I'm B negative.
B negative?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm O positive.
Yes.
I've seen it.
Yes.
So, do you think they would hurt you?
They've never hurt me.
Do you think they would? If you try to ever talk to them or do anything with them?
I don't know. There's such a feeling.
Or do you think they would just disappear?
I think they would just disappear, but there's such a feeling of fear.
That you don't even want to cross that line?
I don't.
I guarantee you, if I ever get the chance again, I would take the chance.
Yeah.
Just do it. I mean, what do you have to lose?
Just your soul. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you're I don't know, with all the scary movies, you lose your mind usually.
I mean, those are movies though. That's what we've been programmed to think happens.
Yeah.
Whenever you interact with such things.
Yes.
That's not necessarily true.
It's not. It's not.
It's just Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, it's not just Hollywood. I mean, if you go through and you read about or you do research on demon possession and priests and everything that try to deliver people from possessions, they talk to the demons, and the demons try to enter other people that are in the room.
Okay,
so,
I'm getting chills.
Yeah. So it's not...
Can I retract it?
So there is, there's respect. You have to respect everything that you're dealing with, and...
I mean, obviously they need to respect you too. I mean, they're in your room, so... I mean, don't you have a right to... hey, you're in my...
What do we really own? This is a land...
Your presence. You own your presence.
Yes, and
so,
they're not in my presence.
You're in my bubble, bro.
Well, yeah, bubbles don't exist, though, really.
I mean, if you wake up and he's up in your room, I mean... He's what do you want?
But he's not up inside of me. That's something
He is, though, with his feeling... The fear, he's crossed that line whenever he puts that fear within you. Even though, like you said, there's some times that you don't even see him.
Yeah.
You feel him.
Yes.
That's crossing the line. He's in your bubble.
Yeah.
He's crossed the boundary. So I think you have every right to cross his boundary.
I guess I suppose that's true.
He's already in you. He's already possessed you with
the fear of it.
Feeling of fear.
Mm-hmm.
He's got control over your whole body. You're trembling. I mean, you're scared to death.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have every right to stand up and stand your ground and say, what do you want?
Yeah.
And then, hold your ground.
I don't know. I mean, if he's already a bully by impressing his fear upon me, if I said, what do you want? I mean, wouldn't he just take it anyway?
Don't let him.
You don't necessarily have that choice. I don't have the choice to say...
You reject the fear.
You.
It sounds like the only power that they have is the power of your emotion.
Well, the power that you give...
They're in a different dimension.
They're in a different dimension, but they're in yours.
So the only power that they have is spiritually.
Yeah.
Metaphysically.
Metaphysically.
So at that level of consciousness, that level of being, your weapons of warfare would be in that state. So... that would be, you wouldn't fight them with hands, but with spirit.
Yeah.
So you would look boldly at them and speak straight to them,
I don't know.
Their soul.
My husband, when he saw the shadow people, he got up and he cleansed the house and prayed over it. And after that, it took me a while before I saw any more shadow people. Or
So he stood his ground
he said, yeah,
and ran them out of there.
yeah,
So you know they have a weakness.
mm-hmm.
You know that they can be pushed back too.
yes,
They push you back, you can push them back.
yeah,
So, shadow people. There's nothing to fear. They can be fought against.
yeah.
So I don't see a reason why we shouldn't interact.
I agree with you. I mean, I don't like when my husband did that, I got upset because they've been with me my whole life. There's a sense of, I feel protected with them. I feel like they protect me. I don't feel like they're there to suck my negative energy or create negative energy within me or feed off of my negative energy. I feel like they're there
I feel like they're feeding you negative energy.
Well, I don't know about that, but I think that I feel like they protect me. Like I feel if I can feel the fear and my nephew can come for the summer and he can feel the fear that they bring, then I think that provides a sense of protection for me and my family. And I don't know. I didn't want to get rid of them, but I also want to have a healthy respect of not necessarily talking to them. I'm still not sold on actually interacting with them, but I like the fact that they're there in my presence.
It's nice that you've made peace with that. So I think that's the end of this, and I'm glad we could cover that. If anybody else has had any experiences, please feel free to share them in the comments below. And we thank you for joining us.
Thank you.